Whoever came up with the me bounce thing, y'all ate that up. Because rebounds, me bounce, creep bounce, key bounce, T bounce, C bounce, anything that comes off that board, it's mine. It's mine.
You ever watch a league build its whole future around one player, and then realize that future might get snatched right out from under them? Because that's where women's basketball is sitting right now. Caitlin Clark wasn't just supposed to be a star. She was supposed to be the plan. The WNBA's ratings plan. The marketing plan. The Olympic hype plan. The we finally made it mainstream plan. And what makes this so wild is that the threat to that plan didn't come from a rival team. It came from a rival world. For the last year, everything lined up perfectly. Clark walks into the pros, and the sport instantly starts moving differently. Road arenas that used to feel quiet were suddenly packed and loud. Jerseys were disappearing off shelves. TV numbers jumped so hard that even people who never cared about women's hoops were accidentally becoming fans. She didn't just bring attention, she dragged the spotlight behind her like a comet. And when that happens, executives don't just celebrate. They start building. Because if you're the WNBA, you're thinking long game. You're thinking the next TV deal, the next CBA fight, the next era where players finally get paid like real stars. And if you're USA Basketball, you're thinking even bigger. You're thinking about global dominance, Olympic narratives, and the fact that a player like Caitlin Clark isn't just a point guard, she's a billboard that shoots from the logo. That was the dream. One magnetic superstar pulling the whole sport into daylight. But just when it felt like the launch button was finally pressed, something else started creeping into the conversation. Quiet at first. Like a rumor you ignore because it sounds too ridiculous to be real. And then it didn't go away. Because somewhere outside the WNBA's control, a new league was taking shape. A global, touring women's league that wasn't interested in competing politely. It was interested in buying the future. People started calling it Project B. Not a normal off-season league, not a cute side tournament. A full international operation with 6 teams, traveling events, massive payroll promises, and something the WNBA can't manufacture no matter how hard it tries. Unlimited outside money. And here's the part that made everybody's stomach drop. This league isn't built like a normal business. It's built like a power move. The kind of move that doesn't need to break even to win. It doesn't need patience. It doesn't need slow growth. It needs impact. And impact in women's basketball means one thing: stars. So the strategy is simple. You don't start by recruiting random players. You start by recruiting names. And you don't do it in public. You do it quietly, through agents, through meetings, through numbers that make people stop breathing. Then the first domino fell. Not hypothetical, not maybe, but real signatures. Multiple WNBA players agreed to join Project B as players, partners, even part owners. That includes respected veterans, headline-level stars, and yes, Sophie Cunningham. Now listen, Sophie's not the biggest star in the sport. That's exactly why her move mattered. Her joining wasn't just a signing. It was a message. It said, this thing is real, and more people are coming. When a league like this gets its first recognizable WNBA names, that's not the end of the story. That's the beginning of leverage. Because every player watching that news does the same math in their head. If she can get an off-season deal that dwarfs what she's used to, what happens when they start throwing offers at MVPs? At all WNBA icons? At rookies who are already cultural celebrities? And that leads right back to Caitlin Clark. The player everyone was building around. The player whose popularity is so massive that casual fans sometimes forget the league existed before her. The player who, whether people like it or not, became the clearest engine for the WNBA's mainstream surge. Clark has been hunted by every brand on earth already. But Project B doesn't want her for a sneaker commercial. They want her to be their centerpiece. Not a star in the league. The league. The gravity. The global face. The story you build everything around. And before anybody runs with the loudest number they've heard online, here's the key reality. Caitlin has reportedly said no so far. She got pitched. She got courted. She got the treatment. And up to this moment, she's still committed to the WNBA path. But even that no doesn't end the crisis. Because the fact that the pitch happened at all is what changes the game. When a league with that kind of backing decides they want you, they don't take one no and disappear. They wait. They circle. They increase the pressure. And the WNBA knows that. Here's what makes it feel like a full-blown emergency inside league offices. Caitlin doesn't even need to leave forever for the WNBA's plan to break. A short-term shift, a touring season cameo, even a quiet handshake for the future. Any of that changes the math for everyone else. Because once a player like Clark proves you can treat the WNBA like a step instead of the destination, the league loses the one thing it cannot afford to lose right now: certainty. The WNBA has lived on certainty for decades. Not certainty about money. That was always unstable. Not certainty about media attention. That was a grind. The certainty they relied on was simple. If you want to play at the highest level in women's basketball, you end up here. The WNBA is the center. Overseas leagues were side quests, not the throne. Project B flips that logic. It's not pitching itself as a side quest. It's pitching itself as the main story. Touring model means no one-city loyalty. It means global stages, constant spotlight, and a schedule that fits perfectly into the off-season window. So players don't even have to choose one life or the other right away. They can double-dip: WNBA for legacy and national pride, Project B for wealth and global exposure. That's the trap, because at first it feels harmless. It's just the off-season. It's just extra money. It's just a few showcase events. But you know how power works in sports. The league that pays you the most eventually becomes the league that owns your prime, your brand, and your loyalty. Not because you're weak, because careers are short, bodies are fragile, and futures are expensive. Now zoom in on Team USA, because this is where the stakes get even bigger. USA Basketball doesn't just pick athletes. They pick faces. They pick marketing engines. They pick narratives that sell women's basketball to the world every 4 years. The Olympics are not only about winning gold, they're about locking in global dominance and commercial momentum. Clark was supposed to be part of that machine, the crown jewel of a new era. The shooter who turns Olympic Games into viral moments. The player casual fans chase across time zones because she makes basketball feel like an event. But Team USA decisions are political in a way fans don't like to admit. Veteran loyalty, locker room trust, sponsorship comfort. Who represents the program in the cleanest, safest way? That's why Clark's early Team USA chapter felt weird to a lot of people. They expected a straight line. Instead, it looked like hesitation. Whether that hesitation was about timing, hierarchy, chemistry, or something else doesn't even matter anymore. Perception alone creates pressure. And pressure makes new leagues smell blood. If Team USA's plan was to bring Clark in slowly, shape her into the next Olympic centerpiece, and let the WNBA ride that wave into a richer future, the timing couldn't be worse. Because now a rival league is offering her a different storyline. Why wait to be the future face of something still negotiating its value, when you can be the current face of something that already decided you're priceless? That line hits harder than any contract number. And here's the deeper part, the part executives fear but don't say out loud. Caitlin Clark isn't just a player. She's a signal. When she entered the WNBA, she signaled that women's basketball could pull mainstream attention like men's leagues do. She signaled that a single superstar can bend ratings, ticket sales, culture, and conversation. So if she even flirts with a league outside the WNBA long-term, it signals something else. That American women's basketball is still not the place where greatness gets fully rewarded. And once that signal gets out, every future phenom hears it. That's why it feels like survival to the WNBA. Because they're not only fighting to keep Clark. They're fighting to keep the idea that the WNBA is the summit. Now, to understand how fast this could spiral, you have to watch the player-over-player effect. When most viewers look at a roster move, they think in simple terms. One athlete leaves, one athlete stays. But leagues don't collapse from one departure. They collapse from what that departure teaches everyone else. If a mid-tier player takes a massive deal, it creates curiosity. If a young star takes a massive deal, it creates temptation. If a superstar takes a massive deal, it creates permission. Permission is the real currency here. Because the WNBA has always been a league of fighters. Players fought for respect, for visibility, for stable careers, for charter flights, for basic treatment that should have been automatic. So when someone comes along and says, "We'll pay you more than you ever dreamed, and we won't make you beg for it," that doesn't feel like betrayal. It feels like somebody finally listened. That's why the WNBA is vulnerable. Not because players don't care, but because caring doesn't buy a longer career. Caring doesn't guarantee retirement. Caring doesn't cover medical bills if something goes wrong. Money doesn't just change lives, it changes norms. It changes what athletes expect. It changes what agents demand. It changes what rookies walk into training camp believing they deserve. And once that expectation lifts, it never goes back down. You can't unsee a better future. So the WNBA is entering a stretch where every major business decision depends on the Clark-era boom staying alive. New media negotiations, sponsorship escalators, expansion chatter, CBA pressure. None of that hits the same without a superstar who keeps casual fans glued to the screen. And Clark is the first player in a long time who doesn't just bring hardcore hoop fans. She brings everybody. That means the league isn't thinking, how do we grow over 10 years? They're thinking, how do we hold this wave long enough to lock in the next deal? Because once the next deal is signed, the WNBA can walk into negotiations with real leverage. Bigger revenue means bigger caps. Bigger caps means fewer reasons for stars to listen when another league calls. So the breakpoint season is simple. The season where they need to prove this boom is permanent, not a fluke. If that season lands and the league looks unstoppable, Clark staying feels like destiny. If that season lands and the league still feels financially stuck, Clark staying starts to feel like sacrifice. And that's the moment Project B is waiting for. They don't need to rush her. They need to hit at the exact second the WNBA feels maximally dependent on her, while still being financially unable to protect her value. That's when you drop the offer that turns a difficult choice into a historical one. And here's the scary part. Caitlin doesn't even have to be unhappy for that to work. She can love her teammates, love the league, love the fans, and still feel the pull of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Because opportunity doesn't wait for your feelings to line up. It just shows up and says, decide. Now, if you want to know what a real chain reaction looks like, pay attention to the next types of targets Project B will chase. Not random scorers. Not role players. The top shelf. The rival who sells storylines. The champion who defines excellence right now. The trendsetter whose move creates permission for everyone else. If they land even two of those categories in the same window, the WNBA's grip loosens overnight. Not because fans abandon the W instantly, but because the global conversation shifts toward that's where the best players are heading. Sponsors follow the glare. Media follows the glare. New fans follow the glare. That's the Exodus model. It doesn't need a full wipeout. It needs gravity. So what does the WNBA do? Hard options only. Option 1, pay more fast. Reopen negotiations early. Spike caps. Create a superstar tier that lets a Clark type earn way beyond the old ceiling. But the trade-off is brutal. Owners eat bigger losses short-term, and if growth slows even a little, the finances look ugly fast. Option 2, lean into prestige. Make staying feel like a crown, not a compromise. Tell the legacy story. Tell the homegrown story. Tell the build the movement from inside story. That works emotionally, until the difference in money gets too absurd to ignore. Option 3, hybrid survival. Accept that stars will play both places, and try to remain the main home through summer spotlight, tradition, Team USA alignment, and fan loyalty. Safest short-term, riskiest long-term. Because hybrid models eventually reveal who the real boss is. And it's always the league with the biggest checks. So no matter which option they choose, the WNBA is walking a tightrope where one slip changes everything. And while that tightrope act is happening, the public war is about to get louder. Every clip of Clark getting held or hacked gets framed as the league doesn't protect her. Every Team USA decision gets interpreted as either blessing her future or blocking it. Every Project B rumor explodes into a culture fight. Every WNBA salary headline becomes a comment section bonfire. Fans will split into tribes. One side saying, stay and build the league you lifted. The other saying, go and force the world to pay women like they deserve. And Caitlin will get dragged by both sides the moment she doesn't do exactly what they want. That's the part people underestimate. The decision isn't just financial or legacy-based. It's psychological warfare. Because once you become the face of an era, everybody wants to own your choice. Now here's the last twist, the one move nobody wants to say out loud because it sounds too wild, but leagues use it when they're on the edge. The WNBA makes Caitlin bigger than the league. Not as a slogan, as a contract reality. A deal that includes a salary way past normal limits, revenue share perks, bonus structures tied to ratings and merch, maybe even team-level influence, a branding partnership where her future is welded to the WNBA's growth story. A Caitlin clause. Not just to keep her. To keep the era home. Would that fix everything? No. But it doesn't have to. It only has to buy time before the next wave hits. Because if Clark stays through the breakpoint season, the league can lock in its next financial evolution. After that, stars won't have to choose between legacy and security. They'll have both. But if she doesn't, the story flips instantly. The WNBA stops being the future. It becomes the starting line. And that is exactly what destroys the plan. Because the plan wasn't just winning games. The plan was finally owning the biggest women's basketball era ever on American soil. So we're back where we started. One player standing between two versions of history. In one version, Caitlin Clark stays, and her entire prime becomes the engine that pushes the WNBA into a new financial universe. She becomes the backbone of a league that finally grows into its true value. The icon who didn't leave when leaving would have been easy. In the other version, she goes, even partially, and her move becomes the spark that forces women's basketball into a new global order overnight. She becomes the pioneer who proved greatness doesn't need to wait for permission. Neither path makes her a villain. Both paths make her monumental. But only one path keeps the WNBA and Team USA's blueprint intact. And that's why everyone feels the countdown. Because the moment she makes her real choice, not in a soundbite, not in a rumor, but in a decision the world can't ignore, women's basketball changes shape. It either consolidates its future in the WNBA, or it splits into a new world where the richest league becomes the new center of the sport. So here's the question that's going to define the next era, and I want your honest answer. If you were Caitlin Clark, would you stay and finish the revolution from inside the WNBA? Or would you take the deal that could rewrite women's sports economics forever? Drop your take in the comments. Because when that moment finally arrives, the whole basketball world is going to remember who saw it coming first. Make sure you subscribe right now. We cover the stories the media skips, the power moves behind the scenes, and the moments that actually change careers. Stay locked in, because the next chapter in this story is coming sooner than you think.